Palace staff are breaking their silence after disturbing internal emails linked to Queen Camilla surfaced. Messages allegedly reveal calculated instructions, media control tactics, and efforts to sideline the Princess of Wales. What was once whispered inside palace walls is now exposed, and the fallout has only just begun. Disturbing emails leak. Staff break silence on what Camilla allegedly ordered. The leak started quietly, a forwarded thread, an unsigned tip, and then, suddenly, a storm inside the palace walls. A former Clarence House staffer, now outside royal employment, released a cache of internal emails to a trusted intermediary. Within hours, those messages began circulating in press circles and among key palace figures. What they revealed has left insiders stunned, disturbed, and, as one aide put it, ashamed to have followed the instructions. The emails, reportedly originating from Clarence House senior aides, exposed a deliberate media coordination plan surrounding joint events featuring Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales. Catherine was never referred to by name, only as the Princess of Wales, or POW. One message instructed staff to ensure visual dominance favors Her Majesty during a scheduled hospital charity visit. Another included the phrase, strategic silence, referencing a directive not to amplify Catherine's press coverage, even when her engagements drew more attention. In a particularly telling exchange, an event planner asked how to sequence arrivals at a school event attended by both women. The response? HM first, Wales follows. Adjust press pen accordingly. This wasn't subtle, said one staff member who reviewed the thread. It wasn't protocol, it was control. Several noted that the emails avoided royal language entirely. No courtesy terms, no mention of duty. It was PR warfare, plain and simple. One aide revealed they were told to issue Camilla's press briefings before Catherine's, regardless of actual timelines. We were told, prioritize visibility, not fairness, not order, visibility. An internal review of event schedules reportedly found 3 recent instances where Camilla was moved ahead of Catherine in photo ops, all traced back to Clarence House planning documents. This crossed a line, the source continued. We aren't just coordinating appearances, we're adjusting perception. That's not what the institution is supposed to do. The emails, though brief and clinical in tone, painted a picture of cold media strategy designed to shift public warmth away from Catherine. According to one communications aide, we saw terms like narrative efficiency and placement advantage. That's not standard language. That's branding. Internal shock. Staff describe atmosphere after email. Content emerged. When the emails hit internal inboxes, staff described the air inside palace offices as thin, chilling, and deeply uncomfortable. One longtime scheduler said, "It was the kind of thing you read twice to believe it was real." Teams at Kensington Palace were reportedly the first to see the leak in full. A senior aide confirmed, the initial reaction wasn't outrage, it was heartbreak. It confirmed what some feared, that this was never a partnership. Several messages focused on logistics surrounding Catherine's appearances. One line read, pre-access to wardrobe plans, followed by a timestamp and a directive, review placement optics, priority to HM where needed. Another thread, referencing press imagery from a recent youth charity event, said, Wales came across stronger than anticipated. Require softening narrative in post-coverage visuals. The phrase softening narrative drew particular disgust among staffers, one of whom said, "That's not a phrase anyone here had ever heard before. It was jarring, cruel even." An assistant from Clarence House admitted they were asked to withhold internal press guidance from the Kensington team in advance of a joint engagement, something normally shared across offices for cohesion. It felt wrong, they said, but saying no wasn't really an option. Kensington aides are said to have called an unscheduled internal meeting within hours of the leak's confirmation. Multiple senior staff reportedly left the room in silence, some shaken, others visibly emotional. "We knew then this was beyond a miscommunication," said one. "It was structural." In response, a quiet but sweeping internal review began almost immediately. Access levels for press documents were locked down. All interdepartmental sharing of visual planning was paused. Palace IT was instructed to back up and analyze any cross-office communication from the past year. The Royal Household's Protocol Enforcement Unit, normally focused on ceremonial procedures, was brought in to assist in the review of email chains. When protocol gets overridden for power, it stops being background noise, said a source close to the investigation. It becomes manipulation. Camilla's office responds: denial, deflection, or cover-up. The official response from Clarence House arrived just before midnight, a short, sharply worded statement. It said the emails had been selectively edited and taken out of context, and insisted they do not reflect the views of Her Majesty the Queen Consort. But notably, no denial of their authenticity was included. That omission set off alarm bells among senior correspondents. One royal editor noted, "The palace didn't say they were fake." That was loud. Behind the scenes, Camilla was described as visibly rattled. Her aides reportedly held an emergency call with a small group of royal correspondents, urging restraint in how the story was framed. "They wanted it shut down," one journalist said, "but by then, it was too big." A palace insider claimed Camilla's private advisors urged her to publicly denounce the emails, but she hesitated. She didn't want to appear divided from her team, or weak. That choice, however, may have cost her support. One Clarence House staffer confessed, "She should have drawn a line. She didn't." Multiple press outlets later confirmed they received off-record calls from Clarence House press officers asking them to pull follow-up pieces. 2 newsrooms refused. One editor told us, "This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate strategy dressed up as delegation." Meanwhile, internal communications audits began. A small cybersecurity team was reportedly asked to begin tracing which staff had access to which scheduling documents and when. The goal: determine whether the emails were leaked externally or shared by a disillusioned insider. Royal protection officers are said to have begun reviewing clearance logs, tracking which aides had digital access to sensitive files involving joint event planning, press sequencing, and visual coverage approval. The attempt to control the narrative appears to have backfired. "They underestimated the reaction," said one official, "and they underestimated how far it had already gone." What the emails reveal about power struggles behind the scenes. The deeper the review went, the clearer the pattern became. These weren't isolated notes, they were part of a repeatable template. The emails mapped out an intentional strategy to place Camilla at the forefront of public visuals, even when her role was secondary in protocol. Words like optical primacy, camera ownership, and narrative shift were scattered across multiple threads. Some included direct instructions to adjust press angles, reposition Camilla's standing during walkabouts, and alter event flow so she arrived before Catherine, regardless of original planning. One planner described being told to reframe coverage emphasis where HM is visually adjacent to Wales. Another line read, where Catherine appears dominant. Post-adjust coverage where possible. A palace scheduler familiar with media staging during the Diana era drew comparisons that were hard to ignore. It was the same technique used against Diana in the late 80s. You couldn't silence her, but you could crop her. According to 2 internal sources, these strategies have been increasing since Camilla became queen consort. Clarence House's media team reportedly grew in both size and autonomy, taking over event direction traditionally managed jointly with Buckingham and Kensington. Royal historians immediately noted the similarities to past internal image battles. "It's a form of soft rivalry," said one. "The crown doesn't compete, but the figures beneath it always have." But what disturbed insiders most was the tone. No mention of duty, no deference to shared purpose, just brand tactics. "It's not about public service anymore," said one disillusioned aide. "It's about who owns the lens." William's private reaction. "Absolutely furious," says insider.
Prince William was not warned. He learned about the email leak late in the evening from a Kensington aide who had seen the press previews. According to multiple insiders, his first response was shock, followed quickly by fury. "He didn't speak for over a minute," the aide recalled. Then he said, "How long has this been happening?" Within hours, William convened a closed security meeting with his senior communications team. He issued a direct order, full audit of digital access across royal households. One palace insider described his demeanor as controlled but cold. William reportedly told his team, "We cannot operate in good faith if trust is being used as a weapon." He refused contact with Queen Camilla in the days following the leak. Sources say he declined to attend a scheduled engagement where she would be present, citing conflicting priorities. This response was not purely institutional, it was personal. William has long been deeply protective of Catherine's image and well-being, particularly after her recent surgery and health recovery. "He felt this crossed every boundary," said one royal advisor. "He believed Camilla had let it happen, and that made it worse." William is now said to be directly overseeing Kensington's media planning, stripping Clarence House of access to upcoming scheduled drafts. A full lockout of shared PR tools between the households is reportedly in place. "He's not going to wait for another crack in the glass," said a palace source. "He's going to reinforce it himself." Catherine's silence speaks volumes, and the press notices. Days after the leak, Catherine stepped into a public engagement, not with words, but with presence. A mental health event at a London community centre, long planned, became her first outing since the emails surfaced. Cameras clicked. Journalists waited. But there were no statements, just stillness. Observers immediately noticed the change. Catherine, known for her warmth and attentiveness, stood further back than usual in press images. At one point, she was pictured at the far right of a group shot, while Camilla, at a separate engagement, appeared prominently centered in official coverage. The contrast was not missed. Her aides, when asked for comment, declined. One senior press officer said, "The princess has no intention of fueling speculation. She continues to serve." But internally, a different mood took hold. A member of her close team admitted she was deeply disappointed, not surprised, but hurt. Staff close to Catherine revealed she had long sensed a shift in tone from Clarence House. Emails that lacked the usual warmth, planning sessions that felt rigid. "There was no coordination anymore," said one event planner. "Only instruction." Body language analysts appeared across national outlets. One noted, "She's clearly repositioned herself, physically and emotionally." Another remarked, "This isn't silence by chance.
its message through posture. Her next two appearances were carried out with precision, tight timing, minimal press engagement, and no crossover with Camilla's schedule. Aides now manage her diary independently. One insider confirmed, cross-approval between households has stopped. She runs her calendar through Kensington, and Kensington only. This strategy, quiet, controlled, self-contained, has created distance, not just from the Queen Consort, but from the palace machine as a whole. "She's had enough," one staffer said. "No more shared ground, not unless it's forced." Staff divided. Internal rift grows between Clarence House and Kensington. The fallout from the email leak didn't stay at the top. It spread down the halls, into the comms offices, planning rooms, and junior staffing levels. What once operated as a synchronized royal machine is now showing visible cracks. At Clarence House, junior aides began requesting reassignments within days of the exposure. One insider revealed, "The mood turned cold. People didn't want to be associated with what had been sent." Several described internal group chats where staff expressed regret for having followed the instructions. Meanwhile, Kensington Palace has gone into protection mode. All joint briefing documents have been split into separate streams. Teams now plan events without shared drives. When cross-house communication is needed, it's handled through neutral intermediaries, usually via Buckingham Palace. Aides loyal to Catherine have taken a firm stance. One longtime press assistant said, "Boundaries have been crossed. We won't be participating in anything not built on mutual respect." Royal courtiers say this is the worst internal division since the height of the Diana Charles years. "It's not just strained," one said. "It's severed." Multiple mid-level staffers at Clarence House have now left entirely or filed internal complaints, citing moral conflict with directives received over the past year. One former aide said bluntly, "I didn't sign up to sabotage someone else's spotlight." Behind the scenes, even long-trusted liaisons between the households are reportedly no longer speaking. Coordinated holiday plans, overlapping engagements, and joint interviews have all been paused or cancelled. What was once referred to as the firm is now split into factions, guarded, cautious, and no longer unified. Diana's shadow re-emerges, echoes of a royal playbook. Repeating. To many within the palace, the emails felt familiar, not in their content, but in their strategy. The language, the tone, the tactics. For some, it triggered memories of a time the institution still hasn't reckoned with. Diana's legacy, often referenced quietly, but felt deeply, came roaring back into focus. One retired courtier who served during the late 80s said, "It was the same pattern. Undermine the natural star, control the frame, edit the emotion." In newsrooms across the UK, parallels were drawn instantly. This was a media playbook built decades ago, now dusted off and used again, wrote one royal columnist, and once again, the target is the people's favorite. William, who has spent much of his adult life trying to protect Catherine from the kind of scrutiny his mother faced, is said to be haunted by the repetition. One aide said, "He's always feared history repeating. This is what that fear looks like." Online, Diana's name began trending alongside Catherine's. Posts flooded Twitter and Instagram with side-by-side images. Diana pushed to the edge of group photos. Catherine now in the same place. One viral post read, "She's fighting her mother-in-law's battle." The term optics warfare, once a whispered phrase from press offices, became a headline term in editorials and op-eds. The narrative wasn't subtle anymore. Someone was manipulating the lens, and someone else was standing still inside it. And that silence from the top only intensified the echo. No public apology, no firm denial, just a distant resemblance to old wounds never properly healed. Public backlash explodes. #justice for Kate trends across platforms. As the story unfolded, the public didn't stay quiet. Social media turned sharp and global. Within 24 hours of the leak, hashtags like #JusticeForKate, #Camilla emails, and #Team Wales began trending across the UK and the Commonwealth. TikTok users uploaded comparison videos showing Catherine repeatedly minimized in group photos. On Twitter, royal watchers pulled quotes from the emails and overlaid them with footage from recent engagements. This was coordinated, one video caption read, and now it's exposed. Instagram pages dedicated to royal fashion posted side-by-side coverage layouts. Camilla prominently featured, Catherine blurred in the background. The Queen Consort is not invisible, but neither is this, one caption read. In mainstream media, the backlash grew louder. Several UK columnists, once neutral on Camilla, published scathing pieces calling her office calculated, controlling, and out of touch. One editorial headline read, "The Crown's Quiet War and its Public Casualty." Polling showed a sharp drop in Camilla's favorability, especially among women under 40. Catherine's remained unchanged, or, in some demographics, rose. Among Diana supporters, a clear message was echoed. "We've seen this before." The palace issued no new statements. That silence, again, fueled momentum. Activists and public figures began calling for an independent review into royal communications. One former MP tweeted, "You don't earn the people's trust with shadows. You earn it with truth." And in the comment sections of nearly every royal news post, a pattern emerged. One word, repeated again and again: respect. What happens now? Trust broken. Lines drawn. Behind the thick stone walls of palace corridors, the fallout has shifted from whispers to full-scale containment. The cleanup is active, but this is no cosmetic fix. What's unfolding now is a deep, systemic response. Not just damage control, but damage reckoning. Multiple high-level meetings have taken place in the past 72 hours. Involving legal advisors, communications directors, senior household aides from across the royal estate. At the heart of it all, a growing internal inquiry now officially sanctioned by palace authorities. The internal investigation is focused on three fronts: the origin of the email leak, the depth of strategic coordination across Clarence House's communications team, and the failure of inter-house transparency. Email trails are being reviewed line by line. Digital access records are being cross-referenced with scheduling files from the past 9 months. Staff involved in joint engagements are being re-interviewed in private. Non-disclosure agreements signed by royal staff over the last 5 years are also under new legal review. One palace source confirmed, "We're now asking questions we never thought we'd need to ask. About access, about ethics, about who was protected and who was targeted." Lawyers have been brought in from external firms to examine the wording of employment contracts, with specific attention paid to what aides can disclose internally versus what is bound by silence. Some sources suggest that protections once meant to guard royal privacy may have shielded deliberate manipulation. Behind closed doors, the dynamic between Camilla and Catherine is being carefully reshaped, not through reconciliation, but restriction. Future joint appearances are being strategically minimized, according to 3 separate palace insiders. The message is simple but sharp. Shared space will now be rare and highly scripted. You'll see less of them together, one royal planner confirmed. And when you do, it will be rehearsed, choreographed, and reviewed multiple times before anything goes public. Within Kensington Palace, Prince William has now assumed full oversight of the Wales family's media operation. All press approvals, briefing notes, and imagery now route directly through his office. Clarence House, once a parallel collaborator, has been cut out entirely from that process. He's taken back the reins, one aide revealed. It's not just protection anymore, it's command. For William, who has spent years building a careful, respectful media image for his wife and children, this breach marks a turning point. Staff say he no longer views internal cooperation as a default. It's earned now, a senior advisor said, and it's been broken. Over at Clarence House, the mood is reportedly tense. 2 of Queen Camilla's most trusted advisors, both of whom played central roles in her public transition to Queen Consort, have stepped back from their roles either temporarily or permanently. Aides say her inner circle is now fractured, shaken, and unsure how to proceed. Several public-facing projects under Camilla's patronage, including a children's literacy initiative and a domestic abuse charity partnership, have been quietly paused or rescheduled. An official close to her office said, "She's weathering it, yes, but not untouched. There's a deep crack inside the team, one that won't close quickly." More quietly, inside offices at Buckingham Palace, courtiers are watching the divide with unease. Staff who once coordinated between Clarence House and Kensington now operate in parallel, no longer on shared platforms, and sometimes not even speaking. What was once a single rhythm is now 2 competing tempos, one source put it. There's no harmony, only hesitation. Most stunningly, palace unity, once the defining strength of the monarchy's public image, is no longer intact. There are factions, there are fractures, there are alliances that have quietly ended. So far, there has been no formal apology, no personal accountability claimed. The silence, some say, speaks louder than any statement. But the damage is no longer hidden. It's on the front pages. It's in the event schedules. It's in the eyes of staff who've stopped pretending. It's in the clipped tone of emails. It's in the visible distance between 2 royal women once expected to walk side by side. And perhaps most telling of all, those who were once silent, once bound by duty, are now speaking. Not with malice, but with clarity. They're done watching history repeat itself. The emails have changed everything. Trust inside the palace is fractured. Staff are no longer silent, and old power games are facing new daylight. Whether accountability follows remains unclear. But one truth is now unavoidable. The palace's internal battles are no longer hidden, and silence is no longer protection.